It's that kind of Monday we are all too familiar with. A failed season by our local football teams, and we quickly move on to, are you replacing the head coach? Are you replacing the general manager? We have known for a while that the New York Jets are replacing their general manager and head coach. And earlier this morning, the owner of the New York Giants, John Mara, made it official. Brian Daboll and Schoen, off of one of the worst years in the history of the Giants franchise, are coming back for year 4. Tiki, do you agree with this decision?
I do. And I'm not surprised by it. Had some conversations down on the field before the game yesterday, and you just got the sense that, well, it felt like before the last few games of the season that Schoen was safe. What was percolating was whether or not Brian Daboll was safe. And you saw a bunch of reports that they were going to move on from Daboll after the game. But when I went and investigated it myself, I didn't get that sense. That wasn't the message that was relayed to me. And I think a big part of that is because, and we talked about this multiple times, the team didn't quit, right? They played hard in some of these games. They won the game against Indianapolis. But you could tell when the end of the Joe Judge era was happening that guys just didn't care. They didn't care at all. Same thing could be said about Ben McAdoo, that he'd lost the locker room, so to speak. Dave's never lost the locker room. And I think that spoke volumes, despite the losing. But I think also, in the bigger part, this is now my take, you can't keep turning over coaches. You just can't do it. Every 2 or 3 years, you fire this guy, okay, next, fire this guy, next, you fire this guy, next. Then it becomes an indictment on you. Right, as an ownership group and as a organization, like what's wrong with you that you can't find the right guy to keep for more than 2 or 3 years? And so, even if that's the only reason, then I think it was the right reason because the players wanted him back. They wanted Daboll back. And again, Schoen, different conversation. Felt like he was safe anyways because of the long-term plan. But I think it's the right plan, and unfortunately, fans aren't going to feel this way, but I'm okay with it.
Well, I'm an open-minded guy. So going into this weekend, and I expressed this to you on Friday and on Thursday when we came back, I thought it was the right move to move on for a myriad of reasons, that it was time to blow it up, even though, yes, it would have been the 4th consecutive time.
Right, but a lot of that conversation, if I remember correctly, was about the draft.
Correct.
And so you're basing the decision on the 2025 season on a moment in April.
Well, no,
right?
I based it on numerous reasons on how they would go about building the team and if I would trust Schoen and Brian Daboll to do such thing. But either way, I was on the side that most Giant fans, I think, were on, which is I don't want to run it back with these guys, but I'm open-minded. So when John Mara released his statement this morning and said, I'm bringing them back, I needed to hear the why. Now, I've heard the why from you. I've heard the why from Sean. I've heard the why from some Giant fans, but I needed to hear it from John Mara. And so he said a lot this morning. I want to play you 3 specific clips that really forcefully put my opinion on what I think now in its proper place. All right? So we can all hear it together if you haven't heard it. And I will tell you as an open-minded guy, as an what am I again? IFO. I forgot my phrasing. It's been a long weekend.
No,
a lot of craziness.
This would be independent IOO.
IOO?
Independent Owner Observer.
There you go. I'm an IOO. See, the beauty of the IO is you can fit any letter in there.
Exactly.
So here is clip number 1. Very simple question I think came from Bruce Breck. How long is it going to take to improve this roster and improve this team, Mr. Mara?
How long will it take to improve the product, John?
It better not take too long, Bruce, because I've just about run out of patience.
It better not take too long. I've almost run out of patience. Okay? Just jot that down in your memory for a second. Number 2, they're coming back, but when they do come back, are they on the hot seat, Mr. Mara?
Did these guys come back on the hot seat now?
You guys are going to have them number 1 on the hot seat going forward. So no matter how I answer that question,
In your mind.
we're going to have to see. I'm going to have to be in a better mood this time next year than I am right now.
I'm going to have to be in a better mood next year than I am right now. Final clip I want to play at this moment. If you're bringing them back, do you think you almost have to give them multiple years, especially if you draft a young quarterback?
You're going to draft a rookie quarterback and then change the head coach and GM after that. Is this really a 2-year commitment to them?
I understand the question, but I'm not going to put any kind of time limit on it, but I certainly understand where you're going with that.
No time limit, but I understand why you asked the question. Here's the thing about John Mara. I'll tell you what I respect and what I did not like about what he said. What I respect, and I've said this before, is he's me, he's you. He's a fan. And he spoke like a fan with those answers. Mm-hmm. I am sick of losing. He was Beningo without the bros. We better freaking win, bro.
Yes.
That's what he said. And I think on its own, you hear that and say, you're damn right. I'm a season ticket holder. I'm a diehard fan. I'm sick of losing. To me, having that kind of thought, have that kind of philosophy as I better be in a better mood next year is not conducive to a staff that you're bringing back for year 4 in which without saying there's a mandate, you said there's a mandate.
Yeah, but don't you know that already?
No, but
I think it's fine going unsaid. And the reason is because the media in this town is so obnoxious with their predictions. So obnoxious. I mean, you heard it all last week, the 2 weeks before. Like, every writer couldn't help but write, Dave's going to get fired. I'm hearing he's going to get fired. Joe's going to stay. Like, if he makes this an ultimatum type season, they're going to have a field day with this, just writing things to sell papers.
He is making an ultimatum season.
But
I know, everything he said right there is you better win.
Yeah, but it's not explicitly, you're on the hot seat, Brian Daboll.
He basically is, though.
We all know
that.
But by the way, you know that already.
I know, but is that conducive with a roster that's far away from winning? Is that conducive with a team coming off a 3-year year? Like, they're going to act in the offseason as if they've got to do everything they can to keep their job. I hate that. If I'm a Giant fan who's going to be a Giant fan long after these guys are gone, I hate hearing that.
Why?
Because they're going to make moves that are not in the best interest of the long-term health of the franchise. They're going to make moves in the best interest of themselves and keeping their job.
But I think you're conflating that with the quarterback, and I think everybody hears that when you say what you just said. Everybody's hearing they're drafting a quarterback, and it's all about the quarterback. Again, I have no insight and knowledge on this. I'm not convinced they're drafting one of these quarterbacks, even if they're in a position to draft one of these quarterbacks. Right? The guy has got to be right. He's got to be moldable. He's got to be like C.J. Stroud, able to play right away, or Jaden Daniels, able to play right away. And if you believe that guy can do that, then you draft him. If not, they're not going to draft him. You know what I mean? And so I think it's too many moving parts that need to happen to get this team right. And I think everybody wants to boil it down to simplicity and one move or one statement or, I don't know, building a team it's not easy. It's complex, and it takes a lot of thought and construction about who are the right kind of guys. Are we recruiting the right kind of guys? And once we get them, are we developing them? That's what it takes to be a successful organization. I mean, I just saw it with the Eagles, right? We mentioned it on the game, talking about, and we had a caller call about this, about the offensive line coach for the Eagles, Jeff Stoutland, and how amazing this guy is. He just keeps putting out Pro Bowlers over and over and over and over and over again. And so if you don't have that, like the consistency of a position or consistency of an organization, you're not going to be successful no matter who you bring in there. So I think that's the bigger challenge, that mentality.
Well, no, but it's not. See, I'm not mentioning the quarterback, though we will, because it's certainly one of the priorities. I'm just simply saying, coming off a 3-win season in which they are not close, they are not good. They're also going to face a brutally tough schedule on paper next year. You had the owner, who has every right to do it, basically say you better win next year. Do you really want your general manager, who is clearly on the hot seat? He doesn't have to say he's on the hot seat. He's on the hot seat.
Yeah.
I just heard him. We all heard him.
I don't mind being told you have to win next year.
I don't mind.
Without being said.
Cheek, you're right. In certain circumstances, I wouldn't mind it. Like, for example, I'll give you a great example. This current past season of the New York Jets, you're damn right. Hey, Bob Saleh. Hey, Joe Douglas, you better freaking win. But when you're coming off a 3-win season in which most of us agree they're not close, you really want to say you better win? You're going to make short-term decisions. And I just don't mean the quarterback, Teak. I mean salary cap related. I mean who you bring in. I mean rushing a young quarterback. I'll give you that example. If you draft a young quarterback, remember what they did when you played and they let Eli sit? Are they going to have the patience to do that in a year in which they better win?
I mean,
I don't know that. This is my biggest problem. This is a whole contradiction coming from the Giants.
Yeah, but that just, it sounds loud and urgent. I think to me, It's more you draft a guy, you bring in whoever the free agent is, the veteran free agent, and whoever gives you the best chance to win, meaning the guy who's going to play consistently well each and every game, that's who you start. Not dissimilar to Sam Darnold, right? Now, Sam Darnold kind of got fortunate because J.J. McCarthy got hurt and just eliminated the conversation about which one of those two guys would start. But when he did get the opportunity, you could see he was just consistently good. Now, that'd be great. Well, he wasn't great yesterday. He was terrible yesterday.
No kidding.
Against the Detroit Lions. And that's what a half team of defensive backups for the Detroit Lions. But that's neither here nor there. But for the most part of the season, he just made the right play. And all you're asking a quarterback to do is make the right play. And if it's a rookie, then the rookie will play. And if it's a veteran, then the veteran will play. I honestly think it's that simple. I think that's what Dabes is looking for. That's what he's asking for. It's just give me consistency in my quarterback play, and it allows us to be successful because we have good talent.
Now, you've said a lot about the quarterback, and it does get most of the attention. That's one of the other things John Mara said earlier today about the quarterback being such a priority during this offseason.
Obviously, the number one issue for us going into this offseason is to find our quarterback in the future, whether that be via the draft or acquiring a veteran. It's going to be up to them to decide ultimately.
So he's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
He's saying the quarterback is the number one priority of this team. And if you have a GM and a coach that is clearly on the hot seat based on what Mr. Mara said earlier today, then are you making decisions in the long-term interest of the franchise that we're all going to still be watching 7 years from now when these guys are potentially long gone?
I mean, maybe, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a rookie either.
I agree.
Because, quarterbacks are going into their mid-30s at this stage. So I did this exercise in my head the other day. Actually, I don't know if I said this on air on the broadcast this weekend, but there are a lot of bad teams in the NFL.
Yes.
A lot.
We happen to have two of them.
We do. But there are 12 plus lost teams in the National Football League this season.
Right.
12. That is horrendous. Ridiculously bad. And what's the common denominator for all of them? Because I went down and wrote, what's the biggest issue for all of them? Is it the head coach or is it the quarterback? Most of them are both, the head coach and quarterback. And there are so many, and I'll give Carolina a little bit of a pass because it's just youth. He's a young quarterback. He's actually played much better, meaning Bryce Young, in the last couple of years. But every team, all these teams in these 12 loss plus seasons, they all have the same issue. Non-consistent quarterback play or head coach is over his head. I don't think, and so from when I look at the Giants, I don't think Dabes is in over his head at all. I think he doesn't have a quarterback who's been consistent. There's not enough depth on places that matter, like the offensive line, and there's just too much, I don't know, there's been too much turnover defensively and offensively for this team to be consistently good. Like, you got to do the same things over and over and over and over again to get good at it. And if you don't, you get lost and you start guessing and you start becoming desperate.
Right.
And
well, that's my
you're
concern.
Not going to win that way.
But, Teague, my concern is this is now going to be a desperate administration.
You're right.
Because their boss said, you better win. I better be in a better mood next year.
But sometimes that brings out the best in people. You know what I mean? It brings out, I don't know, the right kind of decisions. Because you need to win now. You're not worried about, let's kick this down the line. Let's just, we'll make an excuse because 3 of our starting offensive linemen are out. We'll make an excuse because our entire defensive front is out. Like, you can't make excuses anymore.
Right.
Like, you have to be ready for when Andrew Thomas gets hurt again, right? You have to be ready for when, Bobby Okereke can't play for 4 weeks. And if you're not preparing for that, then you're not doing your job.
Right, but the concern I have, and this is the frustration I have as a sports fan that we all have, we are fans forever. Okay, nothing's changing it. No matter who is coaching my team or managing my team or running my team, and in some cases even owning my team, I'm going to be here long before everyone's gone. And so I want guys making decisions that are best for my franchise. When Dave Gettleman was fired, all I heard from Morash was, the cap is a mess. He did it terrible. He left us in a horrible spot.
He did.
You're right. If you're Joe Schoen going into a year in which you just heard what the owner said, I better be in a better mood next year. Do you give a rat's ass about your cap situation in 2026? Or are you doing everything you can to squeeze out success next year so you can keep your job?
Well, to me, I look at it differently, though, because the cap is just, it's nothing, man.
That's just one example, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean, but I can't hear the cap and say, oh, that's constraining. It's not. You can make do. You can figure it out with the cap. That should never be something to prevent you from doing anything. To me, it's about bringing in good players and having guys who have a desire to be great. And when I say a desire to be great, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're a middling player and you're going to be a Hall of Famer. It means you're going to be as great as your ceiling will let you be. And I think too many of the guys on this Giants team don't care to be great. Either that or they don't know how to get there, right? Nobody's taking them there. Because when I look at the Eagles' offensive line from yesterday, I mean, we all remember Nick Gates, right?
Yes.
Was he great? No. Was he? I mean, but he played the role at a pretty high level yesterday, except for a couple of high snaps over a 6'6" Tanner McKee's head. I don't know how you do that, but whatever. But when you look at like some of these guys in other places, like the culture and the expectation is I'm going to reach my ceiling because I don't know what I'm going to be called upon. And I may not be as good as Dexter Lawrence, but you know what? I'm going to play up to my ceiling, so I might be close. And the Giants don't have that. I don't think they have the players with the right mentality, and they don't have the infrastructure.
And whose fault is that?
So for these guys, it's everybody's fault.
Exactly.
It's honestly everybody's fault.
Yes.
And I'm not just talking about the coach and the general managers. I'm talking about the organization has to figure out how to get that right. Because if you don't, you're always going to have a hole that just opens up and everything falls into it. It's like that black hole. Black hole opens up, everything around it gets sucked in. That's what's happening with the Giants. One bad thing happens, a black hole opens, and everything around it gets sucked into it. And you got to defend against that. And so it's the mentality that needs to change. It's the structure that needs to change. It's the type of player that you bring in. You can't just assume because a guy is big and meaty and played at an SEC school that he's going to be a great pro. Like it matters. Like how these guys think matters. And I don't think there's enough of that with this organization.
No, I agree with you, which is why even after hearing from the owner, and we'll hear from Joe Schoen a little bit later on as well, I think they made the wrong decision today. I really do. And that sucks because when Brian Daboll first got here and he won Coach of the Year, we all believed. Joe Schoen has had his moments. There were moments where we believed. But as we sat here today, at least as when I sat here today, open-minded to the possibility that John Mara is going to convince me and maybe you know what? We should run it back for year 4. I came away even more concerned than I was on Friday. We'll get your reaction next, 888-808-1019. Joe B. will join the show coming up at 4 o'clock. Plus, a very positive omen about the New York Giants that I will share with you as the show rolls on. Very busy Black Monday here on The Fan.